It's not quite July, but the weather forecast for the next week or so isn't particularly good. So I thought I'd do a walkabout now. There are a few things that I'd like to point out and also update on some stock availability. So, one thing that eucalyptus are renowned for is the patterning on the bark. And I wouldn't have thought nitens would have been particularly amazing, but these are beautiful. Lovely light brown, orangey greens. Lovely. The camphora, a swamp gum, weren't affected by the frosts, the severe weather at the end of 2022, and they're now growing vigorously. So I've been clearing the ground in order... Hey, fox! Wow, fox. Will I go get you an egg? I wondered what the wee birds were circling around for. Yeah, Foxy, I'll go get you an egg. You're going to come here and say hello. Foxy, Foxy. You're going to come and say hello, Foxy. Hey, you're going to come and say hello. Are you sniffing around? Wow, Fox. I'll go get you an egg. I'm doing a video for the folks, but I'll go get you an egg. Foxy, what's this? What's this, Foxy? Hard-boiled egg, Foxy. Hard-boiled egg. I'm making a video, Foxy. I'm going to leave the eggs for you to deal with, and I brought you some bread as well. There you go. I'll catch you later. Fox is amazing. I love it to bits. Anyway, these the camphora have done well, so I do have some stock, and I'll just show you that shortly. But I've been clearing the ground here. You do like bread, Foxy, that's for sure. I've been clearing the ground, and I have had a couple of losses at the front here with the camphora, and also one at the back didn't make it. So this one's shaded, and that's a running theme for quite a few of the losses that I had during that severe cold spell. And as you can see, I really have been clearing the ground here. It's quite amazing how quickly it became overgrown. Chainsaw needs a few parts, but once I get that sorted out early next week, then I'll cut back quite a lot of the willow here and let a bit more light in, and then I'm going to plant ovata here. And ovata didn't do particularly well. In fact, they didn't do well at all. They didn't like the frosts. They all died. But I'm going to be betting that in the next 10 years or so, we're not going to get a severe cold snap like that again, and they'll get a chance to mature and be slightly more hardy, and they grow so fast. So ovata in this short area up to this nitens, which is fantastic. I really love it to bits, this one, because it was chucked on the compost heap, and it is thriving, really healthy. In this area here, I'm going to plant regnans. Regnans aren't supposed to be very frost tolerant, and they're not really. I'd say -6, 7 is about their limit. But one did survive, and it would have been a much taller, better tree had it not been for some late snow, which toppled it over, heavy wet snow on the leaves, and too much for it and snapped it. So I chopped it off, but it is thriving. So as I say, in that area there, I'm going to be planting a good few regnans. I did have a obliqua here, and these are fastigata. They're all the same family. The obliqua weren't great either. I might plant a few obliqua just to see if I can get a specimen, but really regnans, they grew so fast. good firewood, good constructional timber, so very keen on regnans and the fastigata as well. I'm going to plant fastigata in this area. They're not as tall as regnans, so they need to get the sun. Subcrenulata, no issues with the frost. Alpine yellow gum, and they've just been so tough, hardy, wind resilient, frost hardy, just fabulous. I don't have any seed left, but I do have a couple of orders to fulfill for subcrenulata once they're ready. But after that, I might have 30 or so, but just fantastic. And one great thing about subcrenulata is they've kept their lower branches, so they're just going to be, I've planted them as screening and shelter, and that's, yeah, they're just going to be perfect for that. I have planted other varieties for screening, hedging, and I'll touch on that later. But out of all the varieties I've planted for hedging, screening, this is the only one really that I'm going to recommend now, subcrenulata. Hey folks, have you eaten all those eggs and that bread? That was it for this evening. Yeah, that was it for this evening. These are Perenniana. Again, another variety, just absolutely no issues whatsoever with the severe weather. Growing strongly, growing mature leaves now. Really beautiful as well. Lovely foliage. Gorgeous. And I've finally worked out how to germinate and propagate these now. So I should have more, but it's going to be later on in the year. These Rodwai were planted just before, I think, October 21. So they've been in the ground a while, but they haven't had the best of conditions, the best of starts. Drought, and Rodwai are a swamp gum, and also really severe exposure, plus the vegetation control on this bank. I am keeping up with it now, but it hasn't been great in the past, so they've had a lot of competition, but they're now thriving. And you know, as I say, severe exposure, frosts, drought for a swamp gum, vegetation control wasn't great, and these are just super healthy. So I'm going to have a really good stock of Rodwai shortly, in about probably 8 weeks, and I'll just give you a look at what that looks like now. Huge fan of Rodwai. They've just been astonishing on that exposed bank, and it's exposed to the northwesterlies, the Atlantic northwesterlies, and they've been through Storm Bara, very severe last year. Anyways, because of that, I've been germinating and propagating a lot of them, so I'm going to have fabulous stock. In about, say, 8 weeks maximum, but I'll have very good, very healthy, very vigorous, healthy stock. While I'm here, a few globulus, fan of globulus, and I'll touch on them shortly as well, and a few nitens. And again, you can't fail but be a fan of nitens, they're just fantastic. And these are Coriamba citriodora, and believe me, the leaves really do smell like lemon when you crush them up. They're astonishing. A few Robusta. I haven't had a lot of success with Robusta, but I'm going to persevere. So a few Robusta there. I'm doing regular updates on my small Paulownia plantation, so I won't go into too much depth here. What I would say is, up until now, growth rates haven't been what I was hoping for, and the reasons for that are last year hydration. I definitely left it late in hydrating them. This year they've had plenty of hydration. They got about 4 weeks, 5 weeks of nice warm weather, 25 degrees C or so, cooler at nights, and that definitely brought them on. They've had a good drenching now, so fingers crossed we get some high 20s temperature, and I think that will just absolutely boost their growth. What I definitely notice is, from researching online, Facebook, YouTube, mostly Facebook, a couple of good groups on Facebook for Paulownia, is that they thrive in very hot summer temperatures, so 30 degrees C or higher. They're not faced with very cold winter temperatures, and that's why in Eastern Europe, Germany, Paulownia are really a commercial proposition for excellent constructional timber and just for the aesthetics. I am, however, still very keen on experimenting with Paulownia plantations here in Ireland, and I would still be keen on growing your own plantations from seed grown, then cloning your best ones and developing your Paulownia forest more gradually, so that you get clones that are especially suited to your specific locale. And as you can see, plenty of stock of Paulownia from natural varieties such as Tomentosa. Nordmax is doing fabulously well for me now, so seed grown, but definitely retaining a good portion of the original clone characteristics in terms of growth rate, and I would assume the narrow crown, but I'll update as that goes on. But good stock of Paulownia. Hey Fox, you waiting for me for more eggs? You're just amazing. You're just amazing, Fox, but there's no more eggs at the moment. No more eggs. That's 2 eggs and a big loaf of bread you had there. And I need to make this film so I can sell some eucalyptus trees and Paulownia trees to the people. I'll catch you later. Last year was horrendous for germination and propagation. Thankfully, I'm now starting to build up some stock. I'll have a few Archeri here, and as a gunny eye substitute, I'm particularly keen on them. They're just fabulous. Viminalis I've been growing for a while, and with some caveats, I'm still a huge fan of Viminalis, and I'll explain shortly. One solitary passiflora here, though I'm growing more. Successfully germinated them, and they'll grow on. I'll plug them up and they'll be grand, but it won't be till later on this year for them. These are subcrenulata, and I'll have a lot more of, I'll have a few more. As I say, I've got a couple of orders to fulfill. While I'm here, the pulverulenta, if you've been watching along in my videos, then these have just been amazing. I'm no longer, as I say, pushing for eucalyptus as hedging in the same way. This was intended to be a hedging sheltered area, and it will be a sheltered area, but these are parvula and they just want to grow. As you can see, they're fabulously healthy, very frost tolerant, wind tolerant, but they just want to grow. Same with glossines, just amazing for foliage. I do have some glossines, beautiful smell of glossines as well, as with camphora, as you can imagine, but these all just want to grow. Ernigera, fabulous stock of Ernigera, and I'll show you them in just a wee while. But as you can see, they just want to grow. I was cutting these with a hedge trimmer, but really it's not effective. Subcrenulata if you want to grow a hedge. So these are regnans, I touched on them. I will be planting a lot more myself. I've germinated and propagated more, or will be propagating, they're germinating. And these are Rod Y, some more mature ones, but I do have one particular customer who I need to send some replacements to. So as soon as I have good healthy stock of them, then I'll be posting them up to them in Mayo, I think it is. I want to make sure they get a really good go, a really fair go. These are Rubinia, mixed success with Rubinia. They haven't really grown that well on my patch here. I think something's been eating them, but I do have a couple that have grown. Fabulous flowers, so I'm going to persevere with them. One hazel that germinated a while back. I did a video and it's growing vigorously. I think somebody might be eating it now, fortunately, but it's healthy and I'm particularly keen on trying to grow my own food. Camphora, so some really good camphora now. Again, another customer to send a few up to, but I am going to have a few spare stock and I will put them on the website. I've changed my web address now to craigmitchell.ie, so just go along there and see what stock is available. It's been pretty wet, good hydration in the past few weeks, but prior to that it was very dry. And these are cheery, which are around just over a year old, in fact. So these have done well, 3 meters tall. Anyways, in the drought conditions a wee while back, 6 weeks or so ago, they were starting to wilt, and the hydration in the past few weeks has really perked them up. And I think the lack of hydration and the shading has affected these gunnii. These were blown over during Storm Barra. I replaced one of them, which was a total loss. And this one, I think, is suffering from lack of hydration. So broken roots or whatever, I think this one's a goner. I think this one will come eventually, slower with the shading, but I think this one's a goner and I'll have to replace that. So shading is a big factor. As you can see there, the two passiflora in the back are much more shaded than those in the front, and you can see what a difference. The ones in the front are super healthy, growing vigorously for snow gums, but really snow gums are a metre a year maximum. And these are Coccifera, which are gorgeous. All of the snow gums are gorgeous with this powdery bark. One or two of these didn't make it, which was a surprise to me. Died in the frosts, but I wonder if it was the frosts or the shading or something else, because the rest of them are just so healthy. And I did a video on blue mud, planting in blue mud, eucalyptus, and this is an Apophylla, another snow gum, and this was planted in blue mud and it wasn't particularly healthy when I planted it. It was a gift from Stefan in Germany, so thanks for that, Stefan. And the bark, one thing about eucalyptus, the bark was all dead and black, but eucalyptus grow new bark, and as you can see, this one's becoming healthy again. New bark coming, so even this stem is putting out some new growth, which is fantastic. Although most of the growth is coming from the shoot off the side. So I'm looking forward to all of these snow gums. They're just so beautiful. These are glossines, and yeah, I've got some nice glossines. Really fabulous for foliage, really are. Also, like all eucalyptus, good for firewood. Do have a few pulverulenta and arbora poplars, hybrid poplars. Messed up a bit, they were in the poi tunnel, they got too hot, but I do have a few of them, so get in touch if you're keen on them. Very healthy, very good stock of Ernigera. Again, good for foliage, good for firewood, good for shelter, general all-rounder. More of the poplars and globulus. Okay, I'll touch on globulus and why I'm so keen on them shortly. But I do have a few. I am going to be planting more myself. I've germinated and will be propagating, plugging up more. But it's first come, first serve, so they are for sale. So if you want some, get in touch. More subcrenulata. As I say, I do have another customer. There were a few people didn't get the best of stock earlier on in the year. So in order to keep my reputation, I will be sending them replacements free of charge. So as soon as some of these are ready, some of them are earmarked for one customer who just wants some more, and one customer who as I say, I need to replace his stock. So, but I will have some, and they're super healthy, and as I say, they're just fantastic. Super resilient and tough and hardy, and great for screening. Ovata, these are Camphora, these are Ovata. So as I say, Ovata weren't great here, but I'm going to have another go. I'm going to bet that they're going to be fine. I'm going to bet that we're not going to get -7 for 2 weeks in the next 10 years. More preparing of ground for new plantings, and this will be for Viminalis, and I'll explain my reasoning here. I did say that I was a fan of Viminalis, but there were a few caveats. So in general, those that I planted well have done well. They do, however, get windburn. Some weren't great with the frosts. The one thing about Viminalis is they just come back so strongly. So as you can see there, this one pumping out good new growth. This one as well, just amazing from all over, all the way up. So yeah, still a fan of Viminalis, though what I think I'm going to do is plant Globulus, replace anything that dies or isn't brilliant, isn't a strong, healthy tree along this western boundary where it gets most of the wind and the severe gales. And I'm going to plant Globulus, which are the same family as Nitens, and I think they'll be much more wind resilient. Globulus weren't great with the frosts. The few that I had did die, but as I say, I'm betting that we're not going to get that sort of severe weather we're certainly not going to get it every winter. And the Globulus the winter before, -4 it got down to, they were fine. So Globulus I'll plant there, and that'll provide shelter for Viminalis here. So hopefully I'll get some strong growing Viminalis, and I'll show you my best Viminalis. So if I can get these to grow, and they do grow at 3 meters a year, if you can get the right conditions. So if you have a sheltered south facing slope, then Viminalis are a good choice. My best Viminalis, it's always been a strong tree. For whatever reason, this one just was always sturdy and strong. It's now, after 5 years, it's about 150 centimeters at breast height, and I'd say, yeah, 20 centimeters at the base. And what's interesting, apart from the fact that it's now got really good seed pods on it, so hopefully next year I'll get some good seed off this, is that as you can see up there, it does get windburn, but there weren't any severe gales this year, so it didn't get any windburn, and it's growing much more. It's enjoying itself a lot more. It's putting on top growth. So I'm hoping that if it can reach up another couple of meters this year and firm up and mature the leaves, then hopefully I'll get a really good specimen. So as I say, I am a big fan of Viminalis, but there is that caveat in terms of shelter from severe gales. While I'm here, this is a Rodwai that I planted just before that cold snap, end of 2022, and it's not thriving, but it's putting out new growth. So I'm going to plant, this is my strategy on all the exposed areas that I have, is to plant more Rodwai. Rodwai are planted as shade and shelter for livestock. So that'll complement the farmer, and as I say, it'll complement me because they're grown for firewood commercially. So I want firewood. So along all of this bank here, I've been preparing the ground, and I'll plant more Rodwai. Gunnii seeds becoming, or it's quite scarce at the moment. Milligans do have them in New Zealand. Perhaps what the enthusiasts in the EU There's certainly one person in Germany, Stefan, myself. I'm sure there's a few others as well. Perhaps we should club together and buy Gunnii seed in a really big quantity, pay millions for the phytosanitary certificate, import it, and we'll have a good supply of seed for our own purposes for however long. Anyways, this is a Gunnii and it's fabulous. A really strong, sturdy, well-rooted tree, hardly touched by the frost or the windburn, though it has to be said that this is south facing, so this one would have been, it would have thawed every day during those freezing fog periods, so perhaps one of the reasons. But anyway, it was a fabulous tree before that. It was always strong. The wildflower patch has certainly come on this year. Good plans for it for next year. I think I can improve the diversity in it, so got a strategy there, so fingers crossed next year. It's not fingers crossed, I'm pretty confident that I'll have much more colour, much more biodiversity, and the wee birds just love flying around here, the swallows and the house martins, because there's just so many insects now in the garden. An amazing increase, a significant, a noticeable increase. So these are Gunnii, the Gunnii hedge, and I'm just letting this grow now. Fingers crossed they all flower and I can solve my Gunnii seed issue. That would just be fantastic to get my own seed from these. So some nice coloration in the bark there. This is a viminalis as far as I know. As far as I'm aware, I'm pretty sure it's a viminalis. I have had a few losses here and I have been replanting. Generally I'm going to replant here with Ernigera. I did plant quite a few last year and it's not great for hydration here. It's not the best of ground period, so some of them haven't done that well, but they are growing. So this one's covered in psyllid, so I hope we get some earwigs quickly to eat all the psyllid. But generally speaking, I'm pleased these are going to make it, and as I say, I will replant all the losses and all the poor trees here in this area with either glossines, Ernigera, or up on the bank it will be Rodwai. Pretty sure this is a Dalrympliana. Again, if somebody knows then they can correct me, but it's coming out with lots and lots and lots of flower buds, so I would think this will be next spring before I get flowers, but these have flowered pretty regularly up here every spring, so looking forward to another good display. And there's lots of them even higher up, so this should be covered in them. They're taking their opportunity to silage around here, to harvest their silage, so hence all the tractor noise. This is definitely a Dalrympliana and it's fabulously healthy with some nice spiders eating the psyllid, so that's great. But yeah, just fabulous leaves. And this one's absolutely a Dalrympliana. It was, I specifically planted it from seed, and I knew it was from seed, and I knew it was a Dalrympliana seed because I wanted to see what they were like. So this is definitely a Dalrympliana, so that I can identify it. And this one had some nice bugs in it somewhere. They seem to have disappeared. It's now got quite a lot of psyllid, well, a little bit of psyllid. But generally speaking, the beasts eat them, so that's great. A quick tour of what's happening in these polytunnels. I am still keen on the exotics, and these are Sequoia. So these are Sempervirens, California, and these are Metasequoia, and these have grown really well. So really, not be long, maybe let's say 8 weeks and they'll be ready. All of these are Gigantea, so the biggest one in America, General Sherman, Ben Sherman. I'm pretty sure that's a Gigantea. More Paulownia. I'll have quite good, well I do have, as I've said, shown, I've got a really good stock of Paulownia and a really big fan of those. So yeah, buy online for them. They're up there. Passiflora, a snow gum, as I say, getting some good germination. I've worked out all the issues from last year now. Coccifera, I'll have a few of them. And these are nitens, and definitely nitens are definitely a choice for Ireland in terms of growing firewood, but also to experiment with constructional timber. Very fast growing, very wind tolerant. Not sure how they get on past the sort of -10 mark. I think there were some issues on the Shagus website, but definitely experiment with them. And the Fofla, as I say, I've now cracked it. I now know how to germinate them. And these are Parvula, and these are Perenniana again. And I've cracked it. I now know how to germinate these. So I've learnt a lot in the last year. And yeah, progressing. As I said in a few videos back, I'm optimistic. These are last year's Paulownia plugs, and I'll be doing a short video on that one at a later date. But if you buy Paulownia from me, what I tend to do is, I mean, you give me a reasonable order, 10 or more, and I bung in a couple of last year's plugs. And as you can see, they're super healthy. It's not like you're getting tatty stuff. They will grow. So not having huge success with the Corylus avellana, hazelnuts, but fingers crossed I get something out of these, because as I say, I want to grow my own food. And these are Leucoxylon. So down the bottom there, next to the Paulownia, which will have purple flowers, and then I've planted the Robinia, which aren't doing great down there, with white creamy flowers, and the Coxylon have fabulous red flowers. So I'm hoping for some amazing display down there, and that's where I'm going to plant the Coxylon. They didn't do too well outside, but they were fine in the polytunnel. So I don't think it was so much the cold temperature, it was a freezing fog that we got, which coated their leaves in a thin layer of ice. And generally I'd say that was the big issue here, was the freezing fog rather than the cold temperatures. Globulus, like I say, you know, I'm betting on better weather in the next 10 years, so real keen on Globulus, and I'm going to have some good stock of those. Robusta, these are tender. I'm going to persevere, but I'd say pretty much anything below -2 or 3 while they're establishing, and they're dead. But they are swamp mahogany, so the timber's amazing. So I'm going to persevere one more time with them. And Citriodora, just germinating. Maybe you can see a couple of them there germinating, and I showed you them in the other polytunnel. I don't think they're particularly hardy, so perhaps grow them in pots and bring them indoors during the winter, but the smell from the leaves just really does smell like lemon. The hybrid poplar, Robusta and Arbora, are doing really well, and they're really healthy. I was a bit concerned early on. They seemed to have a little bit of a fungus on the leaves, which was giving them this kind of bobbly effect, which I did research on, and it's a very common fungus that they get that infects the new growth early on in the season. So they seem to have grown out of it, and the leaves are just super healthy now on all of these. And growing, yeah, they're growing well. I'd say they'll put on 1.5 meters, maybe 1 meter a year anyway. But as I say, really healthy. So these are Robusta, and these are the Arbora, and yeah, just very, very healthy. I don't spray any chemicals or use any pesticides, well, any chemicals, herbicides or pesticides, and it's paying dividends, because these are all of my trees. Blue gumsil is the only thing that I have an issue with, and the spiders and the earwigs tend to take care of them. So really pleased. I did plant out 3 Robinia, and this one's growing, and there's another on the other side, but the 2 down there, I think something ate them. I think that's what the issue with these are. Something's definitely chewed on the bark, and it must be something small, and it's able to crawl up as well. And this one too, just, it looks as though it might, but it well, maybe it doesn't. This one's probably the best of those that I have that's growing. And as I say, I really would love to have the display of beautiful white flowers that these produce. So I'm going to plant more in a line along here, and Coxlawn are going there, and more Rubinia over there in front of Fastagata. So fingers crossed to do better next year. That's been a very long video. If you made it this far, then thanks a mil for watching, and good luck.